So welcome back. Now, the Pan African Congress of Azania's People's Organization have signed a declaration of cooperation between the two organizations. So AZAPO and the PAC, they say that this declaration is a revisitation of previous cooperations that include the 1991 Kadoma Consultation, which was between AZAPO, the Black Consciousness Movement of Azania, that's the BCMA, and the PAC. So with their ideologies rooted in Africanism and Black consciousness, the two organizations have always been viewed as having shared similarities with one another. So we are joined now by PAC President Mzwanele and Nyhontso, and we will be joined shortly by AZAPO President Nelvis Qekema. So let's get to why this cooperation agreement has been struck at this point. Mr. Nyhontso, you're with us at this time. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Sakina, and morning to the viewers.
So let's start with when did the two organizations start these talks, and what groundwork has been done to get to this point?
Of course, as the agreement said, at some point back in 1991, the two organizations spoke in Kadoma in Zimbabwe about the possible working together, because we belong to the Azanian school of thought, and we are both children of Sobukwe and children of Steve Biko. So, but recently, after I became the president of the PAC and Africa, Qekema became the president of AZAPO, we immediately started negotiations. Remember, we were together at school, we know each other very well. So we started the talks that maybe it's time that we must talk as these two organizations. And from there, after meeting sometime back in airport last year, we agreed that we must formalize it. And then we had 3 aside to take the negotiations further. And they also met, and they came up with this beautiful declaration, which we signed last week in a hotel next to airport in Johannesburg. So it has been something that was happening. Anyway, we were also forced by the conditions, material conditions of our people, because our people are suffering, because what we fought for has not yet been achieved. What these organizations fought for has not been achieved in this country. People are still suffering. People are still living in squalor. And the liberation, actually, remember, what we were fighting for was the land. And the land is still in the hands of our oppressors. So the material conditions on the ground forced us really to take seriously the issue of our problem and the issue of our people. And that's how it all happened.
So, Mr. Nyhontso, as you say that it's the material conditions on the ground that actually forced you together, that's while many people have for many years, before the declining electoral fortunes of both parties became apparent, many people had asked why these organizations, especially what was referred to as the Pan Africanist bloc of parties, could not find common ground with one another. So what have been those sticking blocks, and what did you do to overcome them now?
We did not see any problem that could not allow us to meet. Maybe in the previous leadership, I don't know what were the real problems, but I don't think there were problems. But for us, it was very, very easy. We had to sit down and talk to each other and say, hey, this is not about us. Hey, this must happen. This is our generation, and we must fulfill our mission. There's no way we can betray it, of course, as Frantz Fanon would say. So it was really not a difficult process for us to talk and say, let us put our people first, because it is always about people, not about anyone. So yes, it was not difficult for us, and we are looking forward. People out there are waiting. People out there are happy. Everyone is just appreciating what we have done and the history. I'm sure is going to prove us right in the long run. In fact, Square and Biko must be smiling in their grave, because this is what we believe they've been also waiting for.
Well, our apologies there, as the AZAPO president, Nelvis Qekema, is joining us there. So just a bit of a sound disturbance in the background as a result of that. But Mr. Qekema, if you can hear me, welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. Mr. Nyhontso and I have already started this discussion, but perhaps from your side, if you could just perhaps pick up at the point of the cooperation between the two parties and tell us more about the details thereof, please.
Now, well, as the president has said, we had decided that we need to turn things around. Our political organizations have not been seen on the radar, on the political radar for too long. And then we thought that this was about time that we changed things around. But we thought that we needed to be in this united front in order to be able to give the people a choice. Because up until now, the people do not have a choice. And that choice is the PAC and AZAPO. And then we thought that this is a weapon and a shield that we're building for the people that will be able to fight alongside the people in the villages and the townships. And but we thought that we should also be able to build this formidable weapon so that the people are able to choose when the time comes.
So if we look at where things are right now, and Mr. Nyhontso pointed out, to the electoral fortunes and what has forced this particular agreement, because it's not a new one, but as he said, perhaps there were personality, politics involved, or whatever the case may have been with the previous leadership on both sides. They did not necessarily find one another. But if we look at what's happening right now, for the most part, if you look at the challenges faced by Black people today, they are as real as they were during the times of Sobukwe, Biko, and there is, of course, a sense that something needs to be reviewed and reworked in order to reposition your organizations in particular so that it may relate to today's societal needs without necessarily taking away from what the organizations stand for. And then you have a party like the EFF, who some have said have basically filled the void that your parties failed to basically step into. So how do you respond to that, and also in terms of what needs to be reworked in order to basically speak to contemporary society? Mr. Qekema? Right, we seem to have lost that connection to Mr. Qekema. Mr. Nyhontso, if you can hear me, then please feel free to take that.
No, thank you, Sakina. In fact, there is really no problem to the messages of these two organizations. There's really no problem into what we stand for in terms of what our people are going to do. The truth is, it was about us, this organization, not going down to the people and take our message clear. And this is what we have done, because this cooperation is program-based. It is telling us what we must do, and we are also going to take it to the provinces, to the regions, and to the local level. Otherwise, in terms of messages and in terms of telling our people what to do, we really don't need to change anything to what these organizations stand for. Remember, in the past elections, for example, when it comes to PAC, we've performed 100% because we had at least a strategy to get to our people. Now, together with AZAPO, I'm telling you, we don't need to change anything. All we need to do is to change the strategy to talk to our people, to talk to their problems. Focus on what is happening out there. People don't have water, don't have land, don't have houses, there is crime, no jobs. everything, as you said, Sakina, it is exactly the situations when Biko was alive, when Sobukwe was alive. So it won't be difficult to take our message across the Azanians.
So I think many people would be interested in the working dynamic going forward, because if you look at what was discussed at Kadoma, you know, the establishment of what was then called the Patriotic Front. How is this going to work now? Are you going to become one party? Are you still going to be two separate parties with separate presidents and separate, machinery on either side? Or are you going to merge and form one party? How is it going to work?
For now, we will remain separate parties, but we'll cooperate. And the three asides that we have, and going forward, we will even have committees that will always review what we are doing as things go, as the time goes on. And remember, we will also have to go back to structures, back to conferences and congresses of our organization. They'll tell us what to do, but we'll always review the cooperation. We'll always know that this is where we are. For now, we are focusing on the cooperation. We're focusing on the campaigns. We're focusing on growing these two parties. We're focusing on growing our messages, taking it across. But as time goes on, we'll review. The committees will always meet and tell us that this is where we are. We will see as time comes. In fact, we will know what is going to happen when that time comes during elections, what we must do. But for now, the cooperation is what it is, and branches, conferences will decide at a later stage.
Mr. Qekema, I believe we have you on the telephone line now, so if you can hear me, with regard to that setup that Mr. Nyhontso just spoke to, where both parties will essentially maintain their structures and machinery. So going forward, what is the long-term thinking here? Because I take the point that in your three asides, you cannot exactly make decisions on behalf of the organization. You do need to go back to conference. I absolutely take that point. But in going back to your individual organizations, what is the long-term thinking from the leadership that participated in these three asides?
Like I said, this is a united front, a front that has got to be fighting alongside the people in the villages and the township, fighting racism, the lack of water, homelessness, and so forth. But what is important, of cardinal importance, is that the two organizations, AZAPO and PAC, are presenting themselves as a contender for power. Because we cannot be doing this for fun. We are doing this because we've got to mainstream black consciousness and Pan-Africanism to be in governance. We must be governing this country. And so as a contender for power that is presented to the people, as a choice that is presented to the people, we are saying to them, look at us, we can do it, but we start to do it right now at the village. We need to go to the village before we go to parliament.
So let me ask this outright. Do you think that your fortunes would be better going into the next election in 2024 as separate organizations, or do you think that you would be better served as one party going forward? And I'd like to hear your honest reflection on that, Mr. Qekema, and then Mr. Nyhontso, I'd love to hear you on that as well.
We think that will be an organic development. As of now, we are different parties, independent parties. What is good about is, as these two organizations, we are bringing our best individualities as institutions into this cooperation, instead of just collapsing into one and then we kick out all our best fortune. So we are going together as separate parties, but we are saying it is the time that will tell. We are saying it is the people that will determine what will happen in future. We cannot say that now, but we are going as separate entities and bringing our best fortunes and our best abilities together.
Mr. Nyhontso, so how does this offer the electorate anything different from what's already on the table?
as the president has said, we for now are different parties, but as you said, we must give you an honest answer. Of course, united we shall stand, and we hope as we go forward and review this cooperation, our membership, our constituencies will tell us what to do. But the bottom line and the idea behind is to govern this country, and we are sure that even if it is not tomorrow, but truth is PAC and AZAPO will govern this country. In fact, if people are not putting PAC and AZAPO in power, they are delaying their own freedom, their own independence, their own genuine liberation.
But to be fair, Mr. Nyhontso, if you take the PAC, for example, the PAC has been at 6s and 7s. For the most part, you've had internal contestation that has become really detrimental to the party. So how then would you expect the South African electorate to bank on that?
No, they should bank on it, because remember, with all that, we have resolved our problems, and we have resolved them amicably through the courts and through peaceful means. You can't even point to a single grave that came out of PAC problems. But other organizations, I can tell you, yesterday somebody was killed. Tomorrow somebody is going to be killed. Next week they will go to their conferences with fresh and new graves, but still electorate is putting them to power. If that is genuine, that electorate are putting people, it is nothing to do with what is happening in our organizations internally. Truth is, the elections must be free and fair. People must stop rigging elections. Their time has gone up now. It's time for the PAC. It's time for the AZAPO. It's time for the Black consciousness and Pan Africanism, and it is unstoppable. We're here to govern, Sakina.
Mr. Qekema, in terms of what you would say would be the top 3 priorities for this organization, what would it be?
Well, of course, it would be about fixing the economy of the country. You will see that now serially, consistently, the economy of this country has been underperforming. As a result of that, about 4% of the GDP of this country is being owed as a debt, to either China, either IMF and the World Bank and so forth. We keep on borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. We cannot be living on borrowing as a country. This economy needs to be self-sufficient. It needs to be running, at full swing, and so therefore the economy is very important. We also need to address the issue of homelessness. If you're looking at the black people in this country, living under trees, living in the street kids and so forth, that needs to be addressed. But most of all, we need to ensure that we govern with integrity. We need to bring the integrity of Sobukwe and Biko into governance in this country. This corruption that is happening, money for COVID-19 is borrowed. When it is borrowed, it goes to the pockets of the leaders. That is very bad. There is no integrity in the politics of this country. The country is leaderless as it stands. So we need to bring leadership into governance. We need to bring integrity and dignity into governance, honesty into governance, and that is AZAPO and the PAC that will be able to do that for you.
Well, of course, we will continue to monitor developments and report on them. But thank you so much for your time this morning. PAC President Mzwanele Nyhontso and AZAPO President Nelvis Qekema on the agreement of cooperation between the two parties. And please feel free to tell us what your views are on this as well at Morning Live SABC.